Now that in previous video we learned about overview of different deployment methods to onboard devices to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution, let's see how to do it on a couple of short demonstrations. So let's see how to onboard Endpoint machine to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution with a script. Now I'm here in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint administration portal, and if I go from here to settings, I choose endpoints, and here below device management I have onboarding option. You can choose the platform of machine you wish to onboard and deployment method also. For these purposes we will choose Windows 10 and 11 since we will onboard Windows 11 machine. And here you can see that if I choose some other platform, you can see a different set of options is going to show. But for now, let's stick with Windows 10 and 11. And deployment method I wish to choose is local script for these purposes. So now, first I need to download this script. As you can see here, this script is optimized for limited usage up to 10 devices, which means this method I am going to choose is going to be suitable either for very small organizations, but it is unlikely in reality. If you remember proof of concept we talked about before, that is exactly when this local script method will be used, to onboard small number of devices in a stage when onboarding method doesn't really matter. And afterwards you can use group policy and other methods for larger number of devices. So now I am positioned on my client machine, which I wish to onboard to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. And here in downloads, I have this local script which I previously downloaded from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint portal. So to onboard this machine, I will need to run this script as administrator in a command prompt. So first, let's open command prompt as administrator. Yes, I need to give permission. And now with CD, I need to position myself into location where my script is located. So to onboard this machine, I will need to run this script now. To run this script, I need its name. So let's copy this name. And with .cmd, I am going to execute this script. With yes, I am going to confirm. Now, in a couple of seconds, this machine should be onboarded. So here in the output, you can see that we successfully onboarded this machine to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. Let me show you how you can check that, and how you can also check that for any other Windows Endpoint machine to see whether it is onboarded to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution or not. So if I go in registry of endpoint machine, which I wish to onboard. So now I am in registry, and if I go in registry to HKey local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows Advanced Threat Protection, Windows Advanced Threat Protection, and here in the status I can see, and here in the status I will look for these two values. I will look for these two values. First one is onboarding state. Onboarding state is 1. You can see here that the value is 1, which means this machine is onboarded. If that value is 0, that would mean that this device is not onboarded. And now look at the value of this org ID. It shows to which cloud instance, or to say to which tenant this endpoint machine is onboarded. Just remember this value. So now I will check my tenant's organization ID here on settings, Microsoft 365 Defender. You can see organization ID, and you can see that that organization ID matches the same organization ID which was in the registry of onboarded machine. So now, if I go on a Windows machine which is not onboarded on Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution, and if I go to the same location in registry, and that is HKey local machine, software, now I search for Microsoft, and in Microsoft I search for Windows Advanced Threat Protection, and here you can see that this is different. I can see that these values we talked about before are not present here, which proves that this machine is not onboarded to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. Sometime after I have onboarded my machine to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution, it should be visible here in device inventory. Let me just show you that. You can see my device here. So now that you know how to onboard device via local script for proof of concept, let's explain how to onboard machines to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution via group policy for a use case of pilot deployment or organizational-wide deployment. This is a little more complicated procedure than local script usage we have seen previously, as we first need to download the package from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Administration Portal, creating appropriate group policy object, and mapping it to Active Directory's organization units which contain endpoint devices on which we wish to apply this group policy. If you are IT administrator, you probably understand how group policy works and have experience with it. So again, if I go to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Administration Portal on Settings, here on the Settings, Endpoints, and again, below Device Management, I choose Onboarding. Now again, I will select Windows 10 and 11 or whatever I wish operating system. But now deployment method won't be local script, but it will be group policy. And again, I need to download the package. And after you download this package, you need to copy it to a server from which you are going to create group policy object. In this course, we are not going to demonstrate it, but let's explain it. So when we copy that package to appropriate server, in a group policy management console, you will create a new group policy object. Once that group policy is mapped to Active Directory organization unit that contains machines you wish to onboard, it will schedule a task on that machines that will get them onboarded. Now let's see how you can onboard devices on a large scale to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution using Intune, in case you tend on cloud device management solution instead of on-premise as with local group policy. So first, here on Settings, Endpoints, I need to choose Advanced Features, and here, let me show, it's somewhere in the below. You need to ensure that Microsoft Intune connection is on. And then you need to open Endpoint Manager console. Let us open it. So we will go from Microsoft 365 Administration Portal, and here is Endpoint Manager. Here you will choose Endpoint Security. And now we need to select Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Here we need to ensure that Connect Windows devices to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint setting is turned on. You can see here that you have options to connect devices filtered by platform and operating system version, which is a very cool feature because you may not want to connect all devices. So now for these purposes we chose Connect Windows Devices version 10 and above to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And now, after that, on top of the page, connection status should be enabled. And now we can create profile for onboarding devices. To do that, let's go here on Devices. We will select Windows for these purposes. And now we go on Configuration Profiles. And here we select Create Profile. For platform, we will select Windows 10 and later, since we wish to onboard Windows 11 devices. Profile type is templates. And here on the templates we will select Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and we go create. Here we will type some random name for these testing purposes. Let's select Onboard. Let's select name, onboard devices and description text. We go next. Now, first setting we can leave as a default because we don't want to block it, and second setting we will enable because we want to report telemetry. And now we go on next. So this here is the most important setting when onboarding machines from Intune. Here you can select any scope you want, groups, devices. We can assign this to a group containing devices we wish to onboard, similar as assigning group policy object to organization unit in local Active Directory. For these demonstration purposes, I will assign it to all devices. And now let's go next. Here we can define more granular assigning criteria. For example, you can see assigning profile if for specific versions and so on. We will leave this default and create. And that's it. Now all machines which we selected will be visible in device inventory on Microsoft Defender for Endpoint administration portal. And that's it for this lesson. In next and last video of third module, we will summarize everything we have learned in module 3.